Well, back again for another review. One can only hope it's a bit less disappointing than the last issue, right? And please, please, please don't let that be a setup for something terrible this time. Our cover this time is really bare. Blank white expanse with Sonic blazing a trail of fire. Rotor and Tails are there to give us the sales pitch. The hottest title on the shelf. And it's going fast! Well, that's rather presumptuous and not nearly as clever as the fourth wall jokes we've had in the past. But wait, what's that down at the bottom?
In this issue, Olympic Trial and Error.
Oh my god, it's a cover that actually tells us a little bit about what's in the issue. Okay, sure, it's basically a footnote at the bottom of the page, but considering that most of the issues don't tell us anything about the contents via their covers, this is cause for celebration. Where's my Christmas cracker? We open to part 1 of our first story, Olympic Trials and Errors. The first scene starts off mundane enough, with Sonic playing baseball with himself. Tails just watches because, as we all know, kids loathe physical activity. Wait, that actually is accurate to today's youth. Boy, now I feel sad. Sonic hits a pop fly ball into the air and dashes off to catch it, running smack dab into the plot. Robotnik's morning cereal bowl. Wait, that's not right either. It's Robotnik Stadium. Both Sonic and Tails ask the logical question of where this thing sprang up from, but luckily a helpful SWAT bot is here to fill in the blanks and get the actual plot rolling. Robotnik, it turns out, is feeling a little sporting today, and so he challenges Sonic and the Freedom Fighters to the first ever Robotropolis Olympic Games. It further explains that Sonic and friends only need to win 1 out of 4 events, and Robotnik will return to Mobius to its original lush state. But if they can't win at least one, then they will have to willingly submit to being roboticized. Not a bad motivator for what it's worth. And then the robot proceeds to activate its mocking feature. You can't beat us. Nya 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 nya. I find myself questioning, once again, what sort of person would program a robot to do something like that? Tails, of course, reacts as a child would, though Sonic holds him back, eager to agree to the terms. Tell Robotnik that the Freedom Fighters accept his challenge. I know exactly what my friends will say. No way, Sonic! Sally points out, and rightfully so, that it's almost certainly a trick, that Robotnik never keeps his promises, and that they'd have to be fools to actually agree to participate. Sonic proceeds to stroke his ego, stating that he's the best athlete on the planet. Well, okay, in terms of running, obviously, and maybe gymnastics, but Sonic, you do realize that the Olympics typically have a lot of different events other than those revolving around speed, right? In fact, later in the comic, we're going to see that even Robotnik is well aware of this fact. Tails, ever eager to assist, asks if he can compete in the games with the rest of them. Before Sonic can answer, however, Antoine is quick to assert, "When it comes to athletics, you have 2 left tails!" just before demonstrating some uncharacteristically dexterous saber use and making a French accent joke. See what I mean? We'll be right back after this word from our sponsors. Tails walks off, bummed out of his mind, merely by Antoine implying that he wouldn't be a useful addition to the team, and no one bothers to stop him or call Antoine out on his behavior, or at least try to reassure Tails that his worry is unfounded. Friendship! But faster than you can say whiplash, Tails is back up and chipper again, planning on creating a sculpture for Sonic after he wins the Olympics. We cut to the following day at Robotnik Stadium. Sonic and his friends are running out onto the field while Robotnik and his robots discuss their evil plans of evil. Turns out Robotnik had the SWAT bot from earlier in the issue follow after Sonic after he left. When Sonic took his sneakers off to go swimming, the robot switched his sneakers with super special look-alike energy-draining sneakers, copyright trademark all rights reserved by Robotnik Inventions Incorporated LLC Company. Oh, you want to know about Sonic swimming? Yeah, he can swim in this continuity. Sometimes. It's inconsistent. We'll get to that in later issues. When Robotnik asks what was done with the original sneakers and the robot states he just threw them in the trash, Robotnik crushes him with a hammer. Wait, was Robotnik in this comic an Amy Rose prototype?
You metallic moron! I wanted to put those sneakers in my trophy room, right next to my nursery school Brat of the Year award.
Oh yeah, definitely an Amy Rose prototype. What? You don't like jokes? Come at me, bros! That's what I thought. Those booing audiophiles are such posers. Sonic is getting ready to run some warm-up laps with all his friends sitting in the stands when all of a sudden the super special look-alike energy-draining sneakers copyright trademark all rights reserved by Robotnik Inventions Incorporated LLC Company start to take effect. Sonic's energy is drained and he flops to the ground like some sort of limp noodle. Sonic's friends begin to panic as their secret weapon is now DOA, except for Rotor, who just looks confused by the whole situation. Thus, we end part 1. So let's flip the page and go straight to part 2. Robotnik immediately begins to roll out the portable roboticizer since Sonic can no longer participate, but Sally protests, stating that even if Sonic can't compete, the rest of them certainly can. Yeah, that makes sense. They're all freedom fighters too, and it'd be nice to see them all get their day in the limelight as well. Sally, Rotor, Antoine, and Bun... she's not here. Why? Same problem as last issue. They introduced Bunny Rabbit, but they have given us no reason why she couldn't be here for this particular story. Not even a throwaway excuse. Well, the reason she can't be there is pretty obvious, because if she was there, she'd no doubt be able to win at least one of the events without Sonic, and we can't have that! But again, if you have a character on a team that interferes with the flow of the current story, you change the story. You could say, well, they could have at least given us a reason why she's not there. But in my opinion, that's just as bad as not having her here at all, and just highlights lazy storytelling. Anyway, Robotnik is amused by their proposal and allows them to participate against his robotic team, and we get a montage of each of them trying, and getting utterly decimated, at the long jump, swim race, and weightlifting competitions. Because again, God forbid they get a chance to shine without Sonic there to bail them out. So it's all down to this last event, a one-lap race around the track, one of the Freedom Fighters against a Buzz Bomber, and by this point, no one's looking very confident. We cut to the junkyard, where Tails is working hard to make the sculpture he mentioned earlier, where he just happens to come across Sonic's actual sneakers amongst the multitude of other scraps and garbage heaps. Lucky! Tails immediately races back towards the stadium, saying that Sonic will never be able to win the Olympics without them. Well, that's rather presumptuous, Tails, especially considering that the sneakers don't contain Sonic's speed power, and Tails didn't know about the energy-draining sneakers. I mean, yes, you could make the argument that it's operating off of Sonic Labyrinth logic, but 1, we've seen no evidence that Sonic can't run super fast without his sneakers, and 2, why would you want to base anything in your story off Sonic Labyrinth?
Yeah, you want to go fast? You want to go fast? You want to run around and have fun? Well, screw you, that's not allowed.
What was I talking about again? Yeah, right. Back at the Olympics, Antoine has been chosen to race against the Buzz Bomber, and it doesn't look good. I mean, the exertion is causing Antoine to make jokes that don't make any sense. This is jogging my memory. All seems hopeless. Even Sally is ready to call it quits when suddenly Sonic himself appears. Our savior has arrived! Over at the finish line, Buzz Bomber is giving the ultimate screw you to Antoine by just sitting there, waiting for Antoine to catch up so he can just step across the finish line. And he proceeds to tell us exactly what he's doing.
Hehehe, I'll wait until the Freedom Fighter catches up before I zip across the finish line.
Yes, I know, it's getting old, but it's just such an easy joke to make. I will never stop calling this comic out for telling us exactly what is happening in the panels. Sonic zooms in and kicks up a massive dust cloud around the Buzz Bomber, disorienting it. It buzzes forward, attempting to cross the finish line, but as the dust clears, it's revealed that the robot actually flew backwards somehow, and went across the starting line, giving Antoine ample time to cross the finish line. Of course, Robotnik immediately drops any sort of facade of fair play, and orders that all the Freedom Fighters be dropped into the roboticizer. But Sonic ain't having none of that, and immediately spins into the machine, cutting it all to hell. It starts to go completely crazy, and Robotnik quickly turns tail and runs off with his minions to avoid getting blown up. But we don't even get a satisfying explosion to close out the story, as good old Rotor informs us that he stopped the machine from exploding by unplugging it. Wait. The mobile roboticizer requires an outlet to function. Well, that's just stupid design! Yes, Robotnik, I'm sure there are plenty of power outlets out in the Great Forest. Sonic congratulates Tails on being the real hero of this story, and Tails asks if he could get fencing lessons from Antoine. Sonic responds that he might just have to settle for fainting lessons instead. And so ends our first harrowing tale of this comic. But we're not done yet, of course. Surprisingly, only one page of padding this time, a one-page comic, before we reach the second tale of the issue. Chomp on this, chump. Rotor walks in, excitedly saying he's about to order an ant farm, while Sonic, Tails, and Sally are attempting to remove some ultra-thick pancake batter from a mixing bowl, Sally postulating that she might have used too much flour. Ah, that's right, this was back before Sally was a savant at pretty much everything she tried her hand at and was just as quirky and flawed as the rest of the Freedom Fighters, before she would become the designated normal of the group. Sonic wonders what the point of something like this is. Gee, Sonic, what could be better than watching a colony of ants crawl around inside a glass case? How about not watching them crawl around inside a glass case?
Sick burn!
Rotor sends off for the ant farm, and we see that the ad was really a ploy by Robotnik. Wait a minute, hold on. If Rotor's sending off for something, that must mean he has a physical shipping address, meaning that he had to give said address to order this thing. Even if it's not going to lead Robotnik to Knothole proper, it would give him a perfect opportunity for an ambush, wouldn't it? But no, logic has no place here. Space is warped and time is bendable after all. No, Robotnik's plan is far more insidious and needlessly complicated. He instead sends off a package to Rotor knowing full well that it's going to the Freedom Fighters. The box itself sounds incredibly hungry. Rotor receives the box and proceeds to open up a sealed can with a skull and crossbones on the front because it's totally ants and definitely not anything dangerous or life-threatening. Out hops a single yellow termite who proceeds to devour an entire table in front of them. Maybe it is an anteater? That's not an ant at all. Ant, it's a termite. This has been yet another rousing episode of Astute Observations with the Freedom Fighters. Rotor retrieves his Insectopedia, and looks up just what they're dealing with. Turns out it's no ordinary termite. It is the Termite-nator.
Fuck you, asshole.
Don't stop, I'll get destroyed by the copyright bots if I show any more of that. Ugh. So the termite, with absolutely no relation to an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, proceeds to start devouring the chairs nearby. I will not stand for this. You may have to stand for this, ant. Rotor states that the creature will continuously grow the more it eats, and then they all realize that they're hiding out inside a forest, and if this thing continues to eat and grow at this rate, then it won't be much longer before their hiding place is completely gone. They try their best to placate the beast by letting it eat all the books and furniture that they have in their hideout until they're down to one last book. Oh, Sonic, not my favorite cookbook! Bitch, please, the entire forest is about to get munched. Now is not the time for sentiment. Sonic shares this viewpoint, but suddenly, inspiration strikes, and he asks Sally to recite the recipe that she used to make that hideous pancake batter we saw at the start of the story. Sonic then proceeds to hide the batter in a log and throw it into the beast's maw, effectively gluing its mouth shut. Rotor takes a closer look at the creature and discovers that it was made in Robotropolis, and indeed, it is a robot. After a quick adjustment, they send it back to Robotnik, where it breaks out and proceeds to start eating anything metal it can get its hands on. Apparently, messing about with the wiring was enough to alter its programmed diet. Okay, I'll buy it, I guess. And our story ends on a pun. Boomer turned Robotnik's bug into a metal muncher. Isn't that iron ick? This issue is pretty good, actually. I do make fun quite a bit, but in comparison to the issue that came before it, these stories are pretty fun. There are some glaring issues, like once again the exclusion of Bunny Rabbit from the entire issue, and the leap in logic that it takes for us to buy that Robotnik obviously saw Knothole's address, but didn't think to use that to his advantage. But both stories were pretty enjoyable. The first one was nice enough to showcase a few badniks, and while it didn't give the other Freedom Fighters a chance to really shine, it did at least show that they were willing to take initiative and act without Sonic being readily available, when, up to this point, Sonic's been the only proactive member of the team, with maybe one or two exceptions. The second story, while just as goofy, had excellent use of the Chekhov's gun mechanic, and while it could have been expanded upon a little bit more in terms of the freedom fighters' attempts to contain the termite, it was still a relatively well thought out backup gag story. And to the entire issue's credit, the amount of filler this time was kept to a minimum, which means that a majority of the pages were used for the exact purpose that a comic should be used for, creating an engaging story. For something that came a little while before the age of the decompressed story, this is definitely worth a look in terms of the older comic issues. Comparing it to the standards of its early issue brethren, I think it's safe to say we have our first above-average issue. It was touch and go there for a while, folks, but we made it. We made it. And hopefully, we'll stay in the upper echelons of quality for at least another issue in a row. Oh, well, I don't think we'll have a problem then. See you next time, everybody.